Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson at Infinity Whole Health. And check out our podcast site at Revealing Wholeness. And tonight is our second installment of Protecting Our Kids During Online Schooling. And 2 weeks ago at our part one, we talked about screen distance, screen height, even a 20-20-20 rule, as well as we talked about shutting off the Wi-Fi because of the amount of RFs and EMF frequencies that we're getting all the time. Microwaves, radiation, all that kind of stuff has increased exponentially, even in the last 10 years since we electrified the world, even in the late 1800s. So again, please check out that and get that information. It's very important on what we can do externally. But tonight on now October 28th, I can't even believe it. It is about internal things that we can do that actually help us resist the ravages of staring at screens all day because of schooling and having a phone near us and Wi-Fi signals and everything that's going on. How can we protect our eyes and our body from all that? So we're going to start with the most simple, then we're going to get a little bit more advanced. So first and foremost, when our cells do things, like we're using our eyes to stare at a screen, and if a laptop's on us, it actually is heating us up. But if we're too close to a screen, we're actually heating up our eyes, and any organ system that we're heating a lot needs a lot of water to dissipate heat. Inside each of our cells, we have little proteins that are called heat shock proteins, and their job is literally to remove heat from cellular processes that are happening, whether we're making proteins, hormones, whatever the cell needs. And so those heat shock proteins need water to help dissipate that heat and keep them protected. So with that said, hydration is by far very, very important. And it goes a long way to say, hey, a little extra protein in your diet might be helpful too, because we need those heat shock proteins. Next is vitamin A. So we know as adults, we're taught in school, hey, what's good for the eyes? Vitamin A. But we look at things like eye strain, and with it comes things like dry eyes. For those of you out there that have dry eyes, your body's actually telling you you're dealing with a likely chronic low-grade infection. And so why vitamin A then? Well, vitamin A first got its name, that A is for anti-infection. And so it was the first vitamin they found, and it was wonderful against infections. And they said, hey, we'll call it vitamin A. So retinol is judged oftentimes by a pill form in terms of international units. So if you're looking to get some vitamin A and you're concerned about that, I will tell you that you probably want to look somewhere else than finding a pill that says international units or IUs of vitamin A. That's typically a synthetic form like beta carotene or something that's fractionated. The real stuff will be more denoted as micrograms of RAE, or retinol activity equivalents. And so we want to see how much real vitamin A is in there. And to give you an idea of food source wise, what would we need? The body for an adult, adult male, female is around 1,000 microunits or just under. So we'll call it 1,000 microunits a day. And so if we look at liver, okay, half an ounce of liver a day. I mean, you could literally swallow that and not even taste it. That would give you enough vitamin A for that day. But most people are going to eat 2, 3, 4 ounces of liver. That's up in the 6, 7, 8,000 micrograms. I mean, you can get a lot of vitamin A out of liver. Next is sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are between 14, 15, 1,600 micrograms per sweet potato. So you don't have to eat a whole one, and neither would I recommend doing that. But if you're getting that consistently in your diet, excellent vitamin A for you. And, with vitamin A, we want a natural source only because of absorption reasons. The liver in our society has enough problems with all the toxicity. And so when it's in its more natural form, we get more absorption and more benefit. So go for the natural stuff. Next is iodine. So if we go into let's say like a nuclear power plant, every radiation worker there is going to be given a supplement. At least most do. I don't know if they still do. This is probably 10 years ago I was reading up on. I'm like, that's really cool. They would give them iodine. And so iodine helps our body resist the amount of radiation that's impacting us, whether it's from the sun, whether it's from the lights above us, our computer, microwaves at home, all that stuff puts out a certain amount of radiation. And so iodine helps us handle all that. Now, a note on iodine, you can't overdo iodine. And what iodine inevitably does when you overdo it is it tries to put out other halides, because iodine is a halide metal. If you remember your chemistry chart, you'll see that iodine is in a column with other things like fluoride, chlorine, bromine, all these chemicals that are in our society, whether it's chlorine or bleach, whether it's bromine in all the bread that we eat as a dough conditioner that is a toxin, whether it's fluoride being pushed on us in our water source or by the dental community. Those things are damaging to our body, and when we take iodine, it immediately starts pushing out those halides. And when they come out of the body, it doesn't feel so good, especially if they come out quite quickly. So if you're thinking about doing, hey, I want to do like huge doses of iodine, I will caution you because you may not feel so good. Iodine also requires calcium, B vitamins to be used correctly and absorbed correctly, and so it starts pulling it from your body, and it actually can create other symptoms, and that's actually showing you that you have a deficiency, not necessarily that the iodine is hurting you, which many people think. And so there's a lot of misnomers out there about iodine supplementation, and they say that they're allergic to iodine, but oftentimes it's not the iodine they're allergic to the protein binder. So a couple of cautions about iodine, and if you're concerned about it, please, please, please message me or find somebody who is knowledgeable about iodine that can actually tell you what's what about it. But it's one of my more favorite minerals to use because it's so powerful. It can have so many changes in the body. But enough on iodine. So RDA of iodine is about 150 micrograms. That's way undervalued. Most research and literature that I read nowadays says 5 to 6 milligrams is about RDA of what we really should have, each of us. Women, as I've talked about on other podcasts, the women have breasts, and breasts concentrate iodine along with the thyroid gland. So as a woman, women need more iodine than men. Why would the breast tissue concentrate iodine? Because you nurse children. It is very important for us to have iodine to protect our brain, to protect our body, to protect us from the sun. We've always been that way around the sun. And so those are things that become important to us. So enough about iodine, very important. Next is RNA. And RNA may be something new to you. You may be like, what's RNA? I think I remember that. Isn't that like DNA? It is kind of like DNA. Our DNA is scanned by RNA all the time. RNA will create proteins that we need. All of our genetic code is sitting there, and RNA is kind of the reader. But there's other RNA that actually scan it to make sure there's no errors and correct it and fix it. So if we look at 300 years ago, we would harvest the whole animal. We would eat the kidneys, we would eat the thymus gland and sweetbread. We would eat bones, as in bone broth. We would just harvest the entire animal and eat it all. The intestines, we would make sausages, things like that. We would get all this wonderful RNA in our diet that's in all those cells. But now we eat mostly muscle meat, and there's not a lot of RNA in muscle meat. And so we're quite deficient. That means we've got to produce the RNA all on our own. But if we're gonna take RNA in a supplement form, which they do have, that is helpful in scanning your DNA and protecting you from the ravages of the radiation and the EMFs and the RF frequencies that we're constantly around. So RNA may be a supplement that may be very helpful to you. I've had clients that are like, wow, what did you give me? My brain felt so much more clear when I was doing lots of screen time. Like I have teachers right now that are just spending tons of times with their students, and their brains hurt, their eyes ache, and they'll take RNA and they're like, wow, I can last so much longer. What is this? And so that's part of the RNA that we should be getting in our diet, but don't. So if you have questions on it, please message me. It's not a difficult thing to get to or a product to take, but it's out there now. It's of benefit. So I want to make just a quick final take on some antioxidants. And so a lot of people out there taking antioxidants to try to help. And while that is good, when we have things like fatigue, dry eyes, eye strain, headaches, we can overdo the antioxidants. That's why I didn't make a big message about antioxidants here, because I think it's been overdone so much, especially in the 80s and 90s. We were doing things like high doses of OPCs, which are oligomeric proanthocyanidins, but they do occur naturally, like grapeseed extract, even around vitamin C naturally, vitamin E. Definitely recommend doing those things to try and help the brain detox. And again, if you're out there struggling because maybe you're on the side, or at least slightly ADD, ADHD, you may find that doing a little bit more antioxidants that are real and food-based actually help your brain calm down and think more clearly and be able to learn in this environment of these screens that are all around us all the time. And so that's my take, at least on antioxidants. If you're thinking, why did he mention antioxidants to help the eyes? Well, we can, but I really don't want you to overdo those. We want you to be very cautious on that. And then, of course, anytime that we're trying to detox the body from damage and things like that that we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes is acidification of the gut. And so I've spoken on it so many times. Watch some of my old podcasts and videos. You'll hear me talk about acidification with raw apple cider vinegar and why we do that and how it's helpful. So I hope that helps you kind of approach your children as well as yourself for screen time and what you can do to kind of externally and internally help your body handle that, as well as create a good learning environment for our kids and for ourselves. And so please join us in the month of November. And since it's Thanksgiving and it's thankfulness, what organ is best helped by thankfulness except for the heart? And so November is going to be Heart Month around here. So we're going to do 2 live Facebook Lives on the heart. It's going to be an awesome time. Find out how you can protect your heart and things you can do to repair your heart. And if you have friends and family and loved ones that have heart issues, make sure they catch those 2 coming up. And until then, I'm Dr. Troy Munson at Infinity Whole Health and our podcast, Revealing Wholeness. Thank you for tuning in.